Good morning, marketing project managers, and congratulations on an excellent set of hand-ins, part one of your project. I really do believe that some of those are industrial strength, so I think there's some possible businesses there. I was very pleased about that. I thought it's a good time, the combination of last week's tutorial plus your project hand-in at this point gives us a point where we can reflect on what it is that we've learned. And the essence of project management is understanding what it is that you're going to build, how are you going to build it, and of course the business case. So those three things give birth to a lot of the artifacts that we deal with. So let's look at the work breakdown structure, which is the set of methods decomposed into a hierarchical chart to give different layers of abstraction to the activities that you'll undertake. At the bottom of that hierarchical chart are the detailed activities to which we can apply estimates. We learned a little bit about PERT estimating, PERT being program evaluation review technique. And that was something that was developed in the late 50s by the US Defense Force, and the two major components of those theories that still hang around are the PERT estimating techniques and the PERT network diagram. Getting back to our three major drivers into our project: the work breakdown structure, the product breakdown structure, and the business case. So the product breakdown structure is also a hierarchical chart, and it decomposes what it is that you're going to build. So it gives different levels of detail to the product. The business case is very important. Let's come back to that in a moment. But when we produce the schedule, which is probably one of the key things in our project plan, we need to decide whether we're going to produce a theoretically optimized schedule or whether we're going to take the business case into account. So if we were to produce a totally optimal schedule without regard to the business case, we would look to achieve economies of scale in the application of our resources. And if you think about our work methods, the work breakdown structure, we would perhaps take the first aspect of our work breakdown structure and apply it to the total product picture. So we would do all the planning for all of the product, then we would do all of the analysis for all of the product, and we would work sequentially through that, and we'd be able to channel our resources probably more effectively. But if the business case said to us that there's a component of the product that we should deliver early in order to quickly get a business benefit, what we then might do is look at our work breakdown structure and say, okay, we're going to do the planning for component one, then we're going to do the analysis for component one, then we're going to build component one, and we're going to deliver component by component. This is likely to be less efficient, but quite possibly will give us better business value. And this is important to take into account as project managers, and indeed yourselves as possibly managers of project managers. And these are the questions that one should be asking in steering committee meetings. Is the sequence really just a theoretically optimum sequence, or does it take into account the business case? So we produce a sequence of activities which we call a schedule, and it's based on the work breakdown structure, the product breakdown structure, and the business case. And sequencing and balancing your resource are really fundamental. There are other aspects to your project plan, which include risk, communication, and quality, and these are aspects that you're going to explore in part two of your project. Just a pointer on risk that I want to remind you about. Often project managers confuse what we mean by risk analysis. It is a risk to the project that the project manager performs poorly or doesn't understand the tools and that sort of thing, but those are things within the project and within the project manager's control. What we're looking for in risk management are those exogenous factors. So what the weather's going to do, what the interest rate's going to do, the things that we really don't have a lot of control over and are imposed on us by the external environment. Those are the risks that we really should be focusing on. So we've said what it is that we need to produce the schedule, the work breakdown structure, the product breakdown structure, the priorities being the business case. We've spoken a little bit now about PERT, the activity estimates that support our total estimation of the project costs. And the PERT estimate, just by the way, is really just a weighted average derivation of the estimate. Now, the other aspect of the schedule is to understand the dependencies between activities, and we spoke again in the tutorial about start to finish activities, finish to finish, all the different combinations. Those are important aspects for a project manager to understand. And when we produce the schedule, we start off by producing a network diagram showing those interdependencies and also taking into account the business case priorities. A question that came up in the tutorials was what is the role of the work breakdown structure? And this is very often, I don't know what's in your exam, but this is very often a question that does come up in project management exams. So the answer to it is it facilitates completeness simply because of its hierarchical approach. It's visual, everybody can look at it at the same time. It interacts with the product breakdown structure to determine detail activities. It facilitates the compilation of estimates, and you might explore there the different types of estimating techniques that we've had a look at. And then moving on from that, the Gantt chart is a representation of the resources, the activities, and the timescales all into one picture. And the reason for producing these project plans in such detail is so that when there's a change to the project, you can immediately assess the impact of that change. You can't hold all of this stuff in your head at once. We try to use this really simple case study in the tutorial to demonstrate that it didn't work very well because, in fact, the case study was just too simple, and you could complete the case study without reference to all of these artifacts. But I think the point was demonstrated in the tutorial that if you have a very well documented plan, you can easily cross-reference and understand what happens when senior manager says you've got to take this resource and use it somewhere else. We spoke about scope creep and it's the usefulness of the product breakdown structure and to some extent the work breakdown structure, being able to control scope creep. We also spoke about positive scope creep, and that was a new thing to me that came out in one of my tutorials, where the scope reduces. Scope creep is really incremental change that is not controlled, but when looked at in its entirety has a very big impact on your project. We control we control scope creep by assessing its impact thoroughly and only incorporating approved changes to our project plan. The other important thing that came out of the tutorial was how do you create a critical path diagram? You need to produce your network diagram, taking into account all these activities that you've identified in your work breakdown structure and understanding the dependency relationships. And again, not to thrash it to death, but applying the business case priorities. We also spoke about the usefulness of something called a RACI chart, R-A-C-I, responsibility, accountability, consulted, informed. This helps you understand the impact of moving your resources around. And when looking at this information, you've got to take reporting lines and organizational structures into account. It doesn't help if you've got the responsibility to do something but you don't have the accountability, or you are accountable for something that somebody else is responsible for. It's okay when those relationships are delegated within your control. We also spoke in my tutorials a little bit about a variation on that, which was the RAEW matrix, which stands for responsibility, accountability, where the expertise is, and who does the work. So it's just a small variation on that. I wanted to take this checkpoint to summarize some of the stuff that we've covered and put it into context to show you how you are developing this learning for yourselves. It's important that we do that. The exams are going to come up, and you need to understand what it is that you're internalizing. So a lot about what we've been covering is project management terminology. The other angle that we've covered is the application of that terminology to the development of some of the artifacts that we're busy with. And you're going forward now into your part 2 of your project, which focuses not on the schedule. That might have been too much for a short condensed course like this, but on the risk plan, the communication plan, and the quality plan. But those plans are supporting plans within the total picture. The total picture would definitely include a schedule. So I've spoken a lot to you this morning. I'm thoroughly enjoying the course and our discussions. Our discussions could be more, but I do understand that you've got a lot on your plates at the moment. And good luck with the test tonight. I'm anticipating that the test will in fact go ahead. There are some disruptions at UCT, the major problem being that the tests are similar to what we write tonight and what gets written on campus, so we don't want anybody to be unfairly disadvantaged in this. But for now, plan on the test going ahead. Thanks very much, everybody, and talk to you soon, and good luck. Bye-bye.